It's February 11. It's Paul Joseph Watson. This is InfoWars Nightly News. Top story tonight, why the banking elite want riots in America. This is an article I put together today with Alex Jones. It's going to be in the upcoming edition of the InfoWars magazine. Part 1 of Part 2. There's going to be a Part 2 tomorrow. Every indication clearly suggests that authorities in the United States are preparing for widespread civil unrest. This trend has not emerged by accident. It is part of a tried and tested method used by the banking elite to seize control of nations, strip them of their assets, and absorb them into the New World Order. And in this article, we look back on the astounding revelations of Greg Palast, the BBC reporter, who, of course, 13 years ago now got the leaked World Bank documents, which clearly outlined that fostering riots was one of the steps of the 4-step process in bankrupting and looting nations. They've done it to Greece, they've done it to Argentina, now they're doing it to numerous countries in Europe, and America is the ultimate goal. And the objective of these IMF riots is to cripple countries financially, scare off investors, and force them to become dependent on IMF loans and banker bailouts. So we've already seen Italy, France, and England, to name 3, which were, of course, all hit by riots over the past year that precipitated the takeover of these economies by Goldman Sachs technocrats. So in this article, we take a look at the signs which point to the inescapable fact that similar civil unrest is also planned for America. Of course, we've got the NDAA, the plan to arrest dissidents, social media spying, looking for signs of civil unrest. That's what the DHS got caught involved in recently. The war on whistleblowers, the record DHS bullet buys, of course, the data center being built in Utah to read all your emails, again, looking for signs of civil unrest, looking for that tipping point. And of course, drones targeting American citizens. So we document in this article how these are all preparatory tools that are being readied by the establishment so they can preempt, steer, and wargame the inevitable social disorder that will, according to their own models, be caused by an economic collapse or a sustained economic decline, which is what the United States is currently undergoing. And this article all maps it out. It's been done to innumerable countries over the past 30 years. And the question is, who's next on the chopping block? So I mentioned drones. Here's an article by Kurt Nimmo. Congress prepares to kill Sixth Amendment with secret drone caught. In response to Obama's imperial killing machines, his fleet of roaming drones, a gaggle of senators led by gun grabber Dianne Feinstein is poised to kill off Sir William Blackstone's palladium of English liberty, the Sixth Amendment. Feinstein has proposed legislation to ensure drone strikes are carried out in a manner consistent with our values, and the proposal to create an analogue of the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court to review the conduct of such strikes. In other words, a secret tribunal that will hand down kill orders for Americans the government believes are, quote, suspected militants. So this is basically the 21st century incarnation of the infamous Star Chamber, the 17th century court used by corrupt monarchs in England to abuse their power and eliminate their political adversaries. The very same Star Chamber, as it happens, that served as a warning for the Founding Fathers when they crafted the Fifth and Sixth Amendments to the US Constitution. And now Feinstein and the rest of them want to resurrect this corrupt Star Chamber. It's about codifying, legitimizing drone executions of American citizens in the name of providing oversight. Another related drone story out of InfoWars, Twitter explodes with fears of armed drone strikes targeting Chris Dorner. A newspaper report which erroneously claimed that fugitive Chris Dorner would be the first American to be targeted with surveillance drones on US soil led to a social media freakout, with Twitter users expressing fears that armed drones had been authorized to assassinate Dorner. So basically, the UK Express reported that Dorner, who of course, as we know, is still on the run for killing 3 people, vowed to wage asymmetrical warfare against the LAPD cops, was the first American to be targeted by spy drones on US soil. That, of course, was inaccurate. because the farming family out of North Dakota, the Brossards, back in 2011, they were targeted with a Predator surveillance drone for the egregious crime of allowing 6 cows to wander onto their land. But people got this story wrong, and a deluge of them took to Twitter to vent their outrage that Dorner was being targeted by an armed drone, which at the moment at least is incorrect, although the police department have said they will use all resources at their disposal, which includes at least the spy drone. What we didn't see was similar levels of outrage when Obama ordered the assassination of 16-year-old American citizen Abdul Rahman al-Awlaki, who was killed, of course, by a drone in Yemen. Nobody was freaking out about that, but now they're freaking out about a false report. The question is, could Dorner be targeted by an armed drone? Well, we know, and there are examples in this article, that there are drones which can be fitted with tasers used to incapacitate suspects from 100 yards away. So certainly don't rule it out if this drags on for much longer. But of course, the main issue to arise out of this story is the outpouring of support for Christopher Dorner. Just a ton of Facebook tribute pages and everything set up in his name, in his support for an alleged murderer, which is, you know, what he is. And that really is, if you think about it, a sad indictment on how much respect Americans have lost for law enforcement, who really only have themselves to blame for that loss of respect, because it's being created as a result of rampant police brutality and the police using the law itself as a weapon to protect corruption, to crush free speech, and not what it should be used for, which of course is to protect and uphold the constitutional rights of the American people. Why we're building a €1 billion model of a human brain. This is a report out the New Scientist about the Human Brain Project, a scientific endeavor to recreate the human brain in a supercomputer. A cost of €1 billion or $1.4 billion. Scientists hope to create a working electronic brain in the hope of uncovering new information about neurological disorders. But here's where it gets creepy. New Scientists asked the director of the project, Henry Markram, once completed, could the simulated brain ever become conscious? He responded, when we couple this model to a robot, the robot will behave, and we'll see this in the way its neurons are firing. Does that mean it's conscious? That's a philosophical question, and it's an unresolved one. He also said, quote, as the model becomes more accurate and behaves more like a brain, we could couple it to a robot and see the robot learning. So, of course, the fear expressed by some as the elite moves towards this cyborg singularity is that robots will eventually be able to develop their own learning process and outsmart their creators. We've previously discussed the predictions of futurist Ray Kurzweil, in addition to Sun Microsystems founder Bill Joy, both of whom assert that before the middle of the century, humans will have been basically supplanted by robots in virtually all areas of unskilled labor, and that by the end of the century, humanity will be ruled by the robots, by the Skynet system, who, for their own convenience, may decide to exterminate us all. So while the €1 billion human brain project is by no means the realization of that future fear, it certainly will be seen by some as a step in that direction. Record close asteroid may miss the Earth, but it could take out your phone, reports The Telegraph. Scientists have dismissed fears an asteroid due to whiz past the Earth on Friday will destroy London, but it could take out vital telecommunications satellites. This asteroid, half the size of a football field, it's going to whiz by on Friday, but it's going to come within the orbit of satellites around the Earth. Of course, NASA has assured us that it won't hit the Earth. But isn't it amazing that we've had years of hysteria about the baseless Mayan 2012 prophecy, when all the time we have these near-Earth objects threatening the planet, basically, and a lot of them aren't even being tracked. This one was discovered by amateur astronomers, and it's going to be the closest narrow miss that scientists have ever recorded. Experts have calculated that it will stay at least 17,200 miles away, easily far enough to be safe, but a very close shave in astronomical terms. So that's going to happen on Friday. There's another article out of the Washington Times where CNN is blaming the asteroid on global warming. That's right. Apparently, human activity on Earth now influences the path of asteroids. Make of that what you will. Completely ludicrous. Here's another article. The Jekyll and Hyde happy pill. It's brought relief to millions, but is linked to suicide, low libido, and birth defects, and we still don't know how Prozac works. This is a long article out of the Daily Mail, but what caught my eye was this part, about halfway through the article. It talks about the origins of Prozac, and listen to this quote. What followed was a marketing strategy that is as old as the pharmaceutical industry itself. If you've got a new cure for an illness, make the illness massively more popular. Eli Lilly printed 8 million brochures highlighting the symptoms of depression and publicizing a new no-hassle treatment. With the rapid rise of Prozac came an epidemic in diagnoses of depression. So this article basically admits that the pharmaceutical industry, this was in Britain, but it's the same everywhere, worked with the government to create the myth, the false perception that depression was a new epidemic, purely as a marketing campaign to sell Prozac. That's how it started in the late 80s. And now it's basically, as we know, become the Soma pill of our time, despite its clear connection with suicides, violent behavior, birth defects, school shootings. And this article goes through it all. It's a long article, but I suggest you read the rest of it out of the Daily Mail. Pope Benedict XVI in shock resignation. Pope Benedict XVI is to resign at the end of the month after nearly 8 years at the head of the Catholic Church, saying he is too old to continue at the age of 85, reports BBC News. The unexpected development, the first papal resignation in nearly 600 years, surprised governments, Vatican watchers, and even his closest aides. The Vatican says it expects a new pope to be elected before Easter. So Cardinal Ratzinger is out. He's citing declining health, the need to take a break. The last pope to resign was Pope Gregory XII, who resigned in 1415 amid a schism within the church. So people are asking, is it just his health? Is that the only reason for his shock resignation? Because it's basically unheard of. I mean, you remember the previous Pope, John Paul II, he was the second longest serving Pope in history and battled through severely ill health right up until his death. Of course, never relinquished the papacy, even though he was diagnosed with Parkinson's in 2001. So the resignation of Ratzinger, the former Hitler Youth member, of course, is somewhat odd to say the least. And there's speculation going around that Ratzinger is about to be personally sued by the victims of the pedophilia scandal, which, of course, has plagued the Catholic Church over the last decade. So basically, the church didn't want him involved when he was being sued over that scandal. And we know that Ratzinger himself was Archbishop of Munich at the same time that, quote, a known molester was quietly reassigned, allowing him to return to pastoral duties and make contact with young people. That's what The Guardian reported today. So it could be related to that. Another interesting theory, which I saw on attorney Kurt Haskell's Facebook page, who, of course, is a regular guest on the show, posits that the next pope is Peter the Roman, and he will apparently be the last pope. And this is based on the predictions of Saint Malachi, the Irish saint, who says, quote, he said back, nearly 1,000 years ago now, in the persecution of the Holy Roman Church, there will reign Peter the Roman, who will feed his flock among many tribulations, after which the seven-hilled city, Rome, will be destroyed, and the dreadful judge will judge the people. So if you take a look at this Saint Malachi's predictions, he predicted all the popes based on their coat of arms, based on their place of origin, their birth. To some degree of accuracy, it's still hotly debated. But he said basically that the next pope after Ratzinger, who's going to resign imminently within the next few weeks, the next pope is going to be the final pope. So it all starts to get a little bit apocalyptic. But certainly Malachi got it right with the persecution of the Roman church around this time. This is when he predicted that the church would begin to be persecuted, which of course it has been over the last 10 years. Many, of course, will point out that this was brought on by the church itself as a result of its failure to prosecute the paedophilia scandal. So we wait with interest to see who the next pope will be and if he'll herald the kind of cataclysm described by Saint Malachi almost 1,000 years ago. So it's all deliciously apocalyptic. We urge you again to subscribe at prisonplanet.tv. Just tons of exclusive multimedia content, some of which you won't see on YouTube, and you get live access, of course, to this show and the Alex Jones radio show live streaming video. Stay with us. Coming up after the break, it's Jon Rappoport talking about the nature of reality. Stay tuned.
If you are receiving this transmission, you are the resistance.
Fellow freedom lovers, Alex Jones here with the biggest contest announcement we've ever made. This is so incredibly exciting. We are launching Operation Paul Revere. What did Paul Revere do? He rode through the countryside in New England saying, to arms, the redcoats are coming. Oneth by land, twoeth by sea. And all that evil men and tyrants need to flourish is that good men and women do nothing. Let me officially announce Operation Paul Revere, a $100,000 cash first place winner to be judged by yours truly, Alex Jones. The film can be 3 minutes. It can be up to 2 hours. It can be fiction, nonfiction, documentary, drama. It's got to promote liberty and freedom and expose tyranny and oppression. And it's not just people in the U.S. that can enter. It's folks worldwide. The rules, the details are at Infowars.com/contest. You have to read the rules and officially sign up for this because it's a $100,000 prize, first place, $10,000 second place, $5,000 third place. But just as I did last year with the reporter contest, we are going to crowdsource from the pool of incredible talent out there and hire several official crews to be directors and writers and camera people in Infowars.com produced major films and documentaries that will be put in movie theaters and on cable. And I've got all the connections to get it done. Together, we're going to really give the New World Order hell. This is extremely exciting. I've made over 20 films. One of them alone has reached more than 40 million people on YouTube and Google Video. The Obama Deception, Endgame, Fall of the Republic, Road to Tyranny. Films are the most effective thing I do, but they're very time-consuming. And so I want to turn the power of we the people loose here. And your art, your research, your ideas are unstoppable. We're officially kicking the contest off this Friday. And you've got a little more than 3 months until April 30th. Just a little more than 3 months to produce your documentary or your film and get it out. And it will absolutely reach tens of millions of people. Our normal contests get about 500 entries. That's what $10,000 prizes. This is 10 times that. $100,000 for first place. That's one of the biggest contests out there. In fact, it's the biggest next to Doritos that has $100,000. This is huge, ladies and gentlemen. $115,000 in cash prizes and a shot to have your film produced and financed by Infowars.com. Edit it, upload it to YouTube and one other alternate public video site, and send your entry to Paul Revere at Infowars.com. The animating contest of liberty that Thomas Jefferson talked about is happening right now. The modern battlefield is in the mind more than ever. We use truth. The globalists use lies and deception. The corruption and oppression and high-tech police state is in our face. But the controllers are scared. They intended to use the internet to dominate and control humanity and surveil us. But we've turned their system against them. This is a historic crossroads that we have reached. And I ask you to ride in the year 2013, just as one of the founders of this republic did back in 1775. I'm calling you to arms in the InfoWar because the pen and the video camera is mightier than the sword. Let's go in there and rescue humanity and awaken them and set brush fires in the minds of men and women everywhere. Be part of this contest. You've got 3 months. Put your hat in the ring. Be part of the solution to the corruption and oppression. Be part of the resistance to tyranny. We're looking for the Paul Reveres that will drive a stake through the New World Order's wicked heart. ProPure is introducing Pro One. All of your filtration in one system, portable, on the go. This is the Pro One by ProPure. You wanted it, you got it. No more do you have 2 or 3 filters to just reduce sodium fluoride. You have a system that cuts out the sodium fluoride and up to 95% of hydrofluorosilicic acid. Advanced manufacturing technology combines silver-impregnated white ceramic with new Aquamedics advanced media for removal of fluoride and other heavy metals, all in one filter element. It cuts out the acid derivative of fluoride. It is the only one that does it, and out of the gates, we have it discounted at 10% off with promo code WATER. This is the only system that in one unit helps reduce or remove pesticides, herbicides, chloramines, ammonia, and chlorine, hydrofluorosilicic acid, the most common form of fluoride not covered by other fluoride filter brands, and sodium hexafluorosilicate. This is a revolution against the tyrants. They love putting the toxic acid base of fluoride into your water. They love the fact that it's an adjuvant supercharging the trace Prozac in the water and the hormones and the other chemicals. By cutting out fluoride, you cut out the turbocharger in all the poison being artificially introduced into your body. This is what I use. It's a win-win. You get a high-quality product at the lowest price. You support the InfoWar. Get your ProPure with the new Pro One filter today at InfoWarsStore.com or by calling 888-253-3139. Alex Jones here with a message that could revolutionize health in this country. Going back about a year and a half ago, I began to learn about the incredible health effects of longevity products. Aaron Dykes lost 92 pounds. We're going to show you some before and afters. Aaron, break down what happened, your story.
I've worked really hard with diet and exercise to try to lose weight, but I just didn't get the results. It just didn't happen. Then I saw what you were doing with InfoWarsTeam.com. I wasn't even trying to lose weight, but I got it because I wanted to feel better energy. I wanted that nutrition. Didn't even understand how that could kickstart my own weight loss goals. But the products did that for me. I found myself suddenly losing weight, more energetic, wanting to exercise, wanting to eat the right foods.
And they don't even advertise it as weight loss. I want to challenge our radio listeners to go to InfoWarsTeam.com. Sign up as a distributor and get wholesale pricing discounts at InfoWarsTeam.com.
We're back on InfoWars Nightly News, and I'm delighted to welcome author and investigative reporter Jon Rappoport, and the website is nomorefakenews.com. Jon published an article a couple of days ago now entitled, "Are We All Living Inside a Virtual Simulation?" And he joins us to talk about it. Jon, welcome to the show.
Great to be here, Paul. Thanks.
Just to explain to viewers the recent findings of this Bonn University study and why it suggests that the universe appears to be behaving like a computer simulation.
Okay. The study basically says that the energies of cosmic waves are suddenly reshaped and refitted to go into a matrix, you could call it, or a lattice a background basic structure of reality. And this is a kind of a pixel-like structure, like a television's picture. So if this theory is correct, then it appears that there's some sort of an automatic program at work here throughout the universe where energies are reshaped, restructured instantaneously to become part of this very tight system, very tight structure, which surrounds us and makes up our reality. And if that's the case, then it's not too big a step from there to infer that, hey, this whole thing could be a computer simulation, some sort of program that could also fit into the holographic concept of what the universe is.
Right, and it also ties into the multiverse theory, doesn't it? I guess it's not contradictory to either the holographic universe or the multiverse theory. Both of those scenarios could tie in at the same time, couldn't they?
Yes, they could, absolutely, because, you know, when you start thinking about this universe as a virtual simulation, from there it's an easy step to say, well, we could just be talking about one universe out of many. And are the rest of them simulations too, or are they different? Well, we wouldn't know the answer to that question, but there's no reason to suppose that every single other universe would follow exactly the same pattern of construction as this one. So yes, the door is wide open.
Do you think this notion that the universe is a computer simulation validates or invalidates the reality of a God?
You know, I don't think it necessarily does either one. I think it's still up to the individual to make that decision for himself or herself, because regardless of what the structure is, you can say there was a designer. And if you believe in God, then God is that designer. So I don't see any contradiction here between, regardless of what somebody's beliefs are or aren't, this idea of a simulation stands on its own. It still could be valid no matter, you know, could fit into anybody's beliefs.
Right. And I mean, is it a fixed and unchangeable program, do you think, or can we as humans mold and change the nature of this simulation through our thoughts, prayers, and actions?
That's a great question, Paul. I happen to think that any structure can be changed. In this case, of course, all the emphasis on technology, the idea that, you know, this is an energy design that we're talking about here, this lattice, and it's formulated according to certain principles that physics can discover. And if physics can discover those principles, then there's a possibility of changing the program or the structure. And I don't see why that wouldn't be possible. Of course, it would take an awesome amount of science in order to be able to understand it and do it. But even with the holographic concept of the universe, where you're talking about a two-dimensional surface that contains who knows how many lines of code that then project the universe as we know it, the obvious inference there is that people might want to get to the point where they could change those lines of code. So I think, again, the door is open to the idea that this program is not permanent, that it could be changed, that alterations could be made.
And of course, we know now that they've discovered through quantum physics that matter, time, and energy itself cannot be divided infinitely. Eventually, you get to the equivalent of, basically the equivalent of one pixel on a computer screen, because matter is basically empty. We also know that subatomic particles that make up matter are diffuse when not observed. Their behavior actually changes when they have an observer. So what does that tell us about the nature of reality if you know, in terms of quantum physics, things cannot be divided infinitely? Eventually you get down to the equivalent of one pixel.
Well, that would tend to reinforce this idea that there is a pixel-like lattice that, you know, informs our reality and this universe. But at the same time, I would say it adds complexity to the problem, because if matter and energy are behaving in ways that we don't understand while we're not observing them, then the idea of changing the program on which this universe is based could run into a whole series of problems. I mean, if the observer and what the observer is seeing are intimately connected, and you start making alterations and changes in the basic program of reality through some sort of technology, that is only giving you answers based on what you can see and observe. What's happening when you're not seeing it, that could be a whole other can of worms.
Well, it's fascinating, isn't it? Because they've learned that these atoms only really behave in a certain way in terms of their relationship with the matter around them. When they're not being observed, they behave differently. So it's fascinating. But I mean, in your article, you talk about this concept that we're all artists. And the way I thought about it was, you know, we all create our own universes. Isn't that what dreams are about? You know, we go to sleep, we create our own landscapes, our own characters, our own objects, our own rules of physics, even in our dreams every night. So, you know, is that concept not too far removed from the idea that the universe itself is a simulation, if in our own brains every night we create our own simulation on a regular basis?
I'm right with you on that one, Paul. When I said in the article, we are all artists, that's exactly what I mean. You know, the history of Earth gives us millions and millions and millions of artists of all different kinds. And everything that they create, in fact, everything that people in their work every day create, because we're constantly inventing and creating, even when we're not aware of it, bolsters this idea that each one of us is creating worlds and realities and universes all the time. And so from there to go to, well, the physical universe is that kind of thing as well. It's a work of art. It's a fantastic work of art, but it certainly doesn't have to be the only one. And what is our participation as artists in the work of art that we call the physical universe? To me, that's not only an intriguing question, but I think that the answers deliver a tremendous amount of empowerment to the individual, because I happen to believe that we all do participate in creating this work of art called the physical universe.
And I mean, it's accepted now that, you know, our brains can only see, what, 6 or 7% of the actual atmosphere that's around us, the matter that's actually there. Our brains are merely decoders of electrical impulses. That's why the whole brain in a vat theory came about, the fact that we could all just be brains in vats and not even know about it, because what's hitting our eyes is only being decoded by our brain. It's not going straight through. It's being analyzed, being decoded. It's all very fascinating stuff. Just finally, though, we're going to switch to the situation in LA there with Christopher Dorner, the fugitive on the run. You were talking just before we got on air about a possible connection with SSRI drugs. Can you discuss that?
Yes, there are several of his so-called manifestos floating around on the internet. And, you know, a cautionary note, I'm not assuming that the official scenario that we're getting about all of this is necessarily true, but accepting it for the moment. In one of these manifestos, Dorner talks about how he's been severely depressed since 2008. And he makes a big deal out of it in one of those statements. So you would assume that he very well could have sought the help of a doctor, a psychiatrist, who would have diagnosed him clinically depressed and then started prescribing these SSRI antidepressants like Prozac, Paxil, Zoloft, etc. Well, we know from many, many stories that are true and also studies that these drugs induce violent behavior, suicide, homicide. They've been indicted in a number of school shootings and mass shootings, and including some evidence from Aurora and also Sandy Hook, but many other incidents as well. So if this is the case, we could be looking very well here at another psychiatrically induced killer. Someone whose report about the police in Los Angeles is a separate question. I mean, whether everything he's saying there is true, is a matter for an independent investigation. But as far as taking it to the point where he's killing people, if that is exactly the case, then we could very well be looking at someone who's been driven completely over the edge by these drugs, because they're everywhere in society and they do, in fact, induce horrendous violence.
Okay, we'll continue to follow the story. That's all we got time for now. The website is nomorefakenews.com. Jon Rappoport, thanks for joining us on InfoWars Nightly News.
Thanks so much, Paul. Enjoyed it very much. Thank you.
That's going to do it for this edition of InfoWars Nightly News. We'll be back 7 p.m. Central tomorrow night. Thanks for joining us.